So when I was reading and praying through the readings and the gospel earlier this week to kind of see, well, all right, what would I like to talk about? What was speaking to me in those that wanted that the Lord wanted to speak to you. This kind of verse and this phrase from earlier in Scripture, from a completely different set of readings and books, came to my mind, and that's the words of Cain when God approaches him and is trying to look for Abel. And he asks, well, where is Abel? And Cain kind of just smugly replies, am I my brother's keeper? And so whenever I kept going back through and reading, especially the first reading in the gospel, that question, am I my brother's keeper, just was in the back of my mind and then eventually in the front of my mind. And so it's with that question in mind that I want to kind of talk to you about our first reading and our gospel today, right? And really, let me ask you this. What's the answer to the question? I didn't do this at the other masses, but I figured I'd have a little bit of fun tonight. Does anyone know the answer to the question? There's only two. It's either yes or no, so you got a 50-50. Anyone? No? I mean, yes? Oh, good, thank you. Yeah. Don't be shy. Yes. Yeah, we are our brother's keeper, yeah. And if you just guessed it, just think. A murderer asked the question, so the answer is probably the opposite of what he was trying to get, right? So you're all good. Anyway, so yes, we are our brother's keepers. Very good. Now, the question, though, is like, well, why are we? Now, there's multiple answers to that, multiple reasons for that, but a really good one, and one that's in the context that we're looking at, is this fact about sin. And there's really two characteristics that I want to point out, and it's that, on one hand, sin hardens the heart of the sinner, of the one who commits it, and also blinds him to the reality of the sin, to its effects on themselves and on others. So we have on one hand, again, a hardening of the heart and a blinding, and also, because of those two same reasons, that first kind of the hardening, it also isolates or kind of divides the person from the family, from the loved one, from whatever the situation may be, whatever that little social group is. It divides them from it. So again, these two characteristics, hardening and kind of a blinding, and then also an isolation or division from loved ones, from family, from friends, from support, right? And so it's with those two characteristics that the answer is we are our brother's keeper, because we need to help people overcome those two effects of sin. And we see very clearly in the first reading, the Lord is very clear with the prophet of his task, that he's to go and call out the wicked on their sins. He's very clear, and he even says, if you don't, their persisting in sin is on you, the prophet. That's a heavy and quite bold statement. But that's the invitation he gives to all of us, because we just answered, we are our brother's keepers. And so the Lord invites us and even challenges us, and actually it is really part of our Christian duty to help those blinded or hardened by their own sin and isolated from even the reality of its effects, to help them see the problem, the sin. That's the invitation, the challenge that the Lord gives directly to us. Now, that's not an easy conversation, by the way. And also, I forgot to say this, there's two parts of the homily. This is the hard part of the homily. The next part is harder than this one. So, all right. So here we go. So, because there's more to come. But the Lord is asking us, when we know that one of our loved ones, our brothers and sisters, so again, we're not talking like random people, okay? We're talking about people we have a relationship with, hence brother, sister, loved one, right? When we know someone who is close to us, they're persisting in sin, we then know they're hardened and blinded, and that they've been drawn away from reality, from people, their loved ones, their support group, etc. The Lord is then asking us, and He's really challenging us, to reach out to them and to show them the error of their ways. But again, that's not an easy thing to do. I know that. It's not fun to go up to someone and say, hey man, you could be treating your wife better, or you could be maybe a more present father, or to go up to a wife and say, your husband's really not that bad. I mean, yeah, he's a little high-strung, and yeah, okay, he has a dad bod now, but he's a really good guy, Yeah, the ladies appreciated that, but you're also welcome, gentlemen, right? But that's hard to sometimes say to someone, like, you need to treat your spouse better, or be a better husband or wife or family member. Or maybe it's a friend or a business partner, and you have to sit them down and say, look, I don't think you did a good job on that business deal. I don't think you were fair. I think you maybe weren't so honest in how you did that dealing. Or, you have more examples in your own head, right, of when you know that someone is persisting in sin or did something wrong and they need to be corrected. That's not an easy conversation. And you can even start it, right? Well, and we even see in the gospel, Christ kind of gives us a little, like a mini template of how to go about this. He says, don't do it in public, pull them aside in private and have the conversation. Now, again, not easy for them or for you, so you can just start out the conversation by saying, look, I'm just going to start out by saying, this is really hard for me to say, and it's probably going to be even harder for you to hear. But we're sitting down right now because I love you, and I know that there's good in you, and you can be doing better, and that what's going on right now isn't who you really are. But maybe you don't see it, so I just want you to know that I know this isn't you, but, and then X, Y, and Z, right? Now that's hard to do, but the Lord, He asks us to do it. He challenged us to do it. It is our duty as Christian brothers and sisters to help a sinner come back from their way. Now, if you do that and nothing happens, you gave it your best shot. That's on them at that point. But sin hardens and blinds. And it's up to us sometimes who have a better, maybe a different or better perspective on things to help call them out. And maybe that's what it would be. Now, I remember in my own life, especially when I was in seminary, right? I had great friends who at times pulled me aside or came to my room and had a good chat with Padilla, right? They would sit me down and have a nice chat. And I'm thankful for them, that they were such good friends that they did that for me. Now, I don't think I have much to show for what they did for me, but they gave it their good shot, right? But I'm thankful for them. And the reality is a lot of times I do think that we don't always have maybe like good friends who can open their hearts to us, or that we can open our hearts to. Just as a general observation that's only tangentially connected to this, it's really kind of surprising how the quality of friendship that doesn't exist anymore for various reasons. That a true friend is hard to find nowadays, but if you have them, good. Anyway, moving on. So that's the hard part, the needing to tell people when they're maybe off the good path. The harder part is that what if it happens to us? How are we going to respond? Because the reality is, just as the Lord is asking us to help a sinner recover from their way, get back on the straight path, so too it may indeed happen to us. Now look, I'm going to hold my hand up and say, I'm not perfect. I need to be corrected sometimes. I need to be criticized and to say, hey, please, I'm glad that I know people who have done that for me. But we have to ask, how do we accept that criticism? How do we accept that guidance? Do we reject it? Do we say, no, I don't need it, or oh, it's fine, whatever? Or do we think, are we humble enough to recognize that someone's going out on a limb lovingly to bring us back to Christ, or to help us become more perfect and fulfilled in Him? I think one of the most beautiful things, now look, I'm not married, so what I'm about to say may go over your head, you may disagree with me, but I think like one of the most beautiful things about marriage is that you have someone in your life who knows you so well and whose sole existence right now, really, husbands and wives, you took vows at whatever church you went to, right, in front of God and man to get your spouse to heaven. Those vows mean something. And husbands and wives, you have someone in your life who the only person who knows them better is God. What a gift that is, that you have someone who knows you, who loves you, who vowed to get you to heaven, who is there to help you straighten out or to correct you when you've made a mistake or are just in the wrong. What a beautiful gift. Now, let me be clear. The whole, helping each other get to heaven, that doesn't mean like you have to see, Father Padilla said I can yell at you about this. I didn't say that. So please, don't blame me. But the reality is that you have a helpmate who can be open and honest with you. I hope your relationships are such that you can be brutally open and honest with your spouse and say, hey, look, honey, please, you might want to change this. Or, hey, I love you, and that's why I'm telling you. What a beautiful gift that you have. It's not always fun to hear it. It doesn't always come across the best way. It's okay. Hopefully it's done in love and received in love too. And so, my brothers and sisters, I will simply offer you to close out the same invitation and challenge that Christ gave us. If you have someone in your life, a close friend, family member, colleague maybe, someone you have a relationship with, that you know is persisting in some sin or did some wrong and needs to be guided back. Firstly, I want you to pray for that person earnestly and with your heart. And then secondly, in that prayer for them, and as you pray for their conversion, I want you to ask the Lord too and say, Lord, are you asking me to help them see what they don't see? To help soften their heart? To help illuminate the blindness in their eyes? And then, if his answer is yes, then pray for the courage to do that, to have that tough conversation. You could save a soul. You could save multiple souls. And then secondly, if no one comes up to you to offer correction or guidance, pray in the silence of your own heart and ask the Lord, Lord, where can I grow? Where are you calling me to be more like you? Where are you calling me? In what area of my life are you calling me to be better, to be more holy, to be more Christian? And hopefully you have the humility to respond positively to that. I hope I have the humility when I do this same exercise later tonight, that I respond in the way that I'm hoping that you respond. And so, when we open our hearts to Christ, hopefully we have the courage to allow him to correct our ways and to get on the path that we want to be on towards him in heaven. And hopefully we have the courage too to help our brothers and sisters for whom we are, or of whom we are keepers, get there too along with us.